Cam, what's up? How's it been?
Yo. What's going on?
Nothing much. So this is Cam Adair. Is it Adair?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, good. Okay, I haven't been pronouncing it wrong the whole time. So Cam Adair, founder of the wonderful website GameQuitters.com, which is, would you call it a resource center and message board for people struggling with video game addiction?
Yeah, it's the largest support community for people who are looking to quit. So what's cool, in my opinion, about Game Quitters is that it's all people who are choosing to be there on their own, and no one's forcing them. It's just people looking for help and supporting each other, and it's a really cool thing.
Right, yeah. Like, I would say the interesting thing is if a website like this started maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago, like the deal with this website is it would be someone who's never played video games that would probably have started a site like this if it was, again, like 20 years ago, because but I guess the sort of interesting thing with this is you yourself have said that you struggled with video game addiction in the past, and you're not someone who I guess is an enemy to video games, but how would I put it? But someone who's experienced the same thing and is trying to get other people, trying to break the pattern, essentially.
Exactly. Okay. And that's exactly how I got my start in this. I went through it myself, and then I came to a point where I think I looked online, like how to quit playing video games just out of curiosity. And the answers I saw were things that we know don't work, like go hang out with your friends or, just study more. And it's like, well, all my friends play and I game to avoid studying. So that advice doesn't work, but if you're someone genuinely looking for help and that's the advice that you get, you're kind of like, all right, well, that's not what I need. And you just go back and you keep gaming.
Yeah. And
so I kind of shared my story, and it just blew up. I heard from hundreds and thousands of people emailing me saying, or leaving comments saying, me too, and leaving, a 1,000-word essay of their life story. And they were as young as 10 years old all the way up to 60 plus. And so it was kind of like the community spoke for itself. This isn't something that I was trying to push on people or, go into the gaming community and say, hey, you guys have a problem. It was just, this was something I went through, and a lot of people have resonated, and it's just continued to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, no, I guess when I was like maybe 16 or 17, I played I'd say I probably played too many video games. I own maybe, I don't know, 3,000, 3,500 in just video game memorabilia, or not memorabilia, but video game products alone. And I guess the lucky break for me is they stopped releasing games that I liked. So I was like, screw this, whatever. So I guess it wasn't a real problem for me. But I definitely see the thing with your site is like I definitely see there you find so many kids, especially when you work in like a creative field, you get so many kids messaging on Twitter like, oh hey, how do I become a better artist, or how do I become a better whatever? And you go down their feed and it's all like, oh, I'm playing Steam 15 hours a day, I'm having a big fun time, and it's like. That's the number one thing I tell people who want to aspire for any goal is you got to put that controller down, because that's just generationally, that's like the thing, that's one of the big things that hold people back is because it's this thing that actively takes up your time. It's not like being a music junkie where you can put on a song and it goes off in the background. Video game requires your the first, I guess it requires the primary portion of your attention. So I guess that's where it's a little different here. Or like even movies, like if somebody watches movies or sports all day, like they usually like put it off in the back. They at least that's what I did a lot. But
for sure. And I think that sometimes the argument is like, well, I play video games because it's fun, and that's cool. And if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who have gamed for years and years and years, and what have you really got out of it other than you've just been entertained? And if you applied those same years into other skills like photography or filmmaking or something creative, starting your own business, I just have to imagine that the return on that time and energy and money and just the immersive side of it, of just focus, you'd be a lot further ahead. And that's not the most popular opinion, and I certainly am not against gaming. If you want to game, go ahead and game. But I do think that there is this conversation around, like what's the real value in it over time?
Yeah, no, I a lot of people would argue, well, having fun is enough for me, and it's like it gets to a point where we're dealing with this like. I guess, or I don't know how media driven this epidemic is, but we're dealing with so many people who are, and we'll get to the statistics of this later. How as gaming has increased, the employment rate in males ages 18 to 25 has declined. It was some statistic like that. Well, anyway, we'll get to that later. I'm sure you have far more documentation on that than I do. So, I mean, some of the research I did for this was you were on you did a couple TED Talks. I think I watched one of them. And basically, and again, this was something that you once struggled with yourself. And it was the story where you pretended to have a job and you would play video games all night. And then you would, you get your dad to drive you to the quote unquote job location. And what you would do is like wait around for like 10 minutes, smoke a cigarette. I don't know, whatever. And you would then you would proceed to take the bus back home to either sleep or play more video games. And so was that a one-time thing or how long was that going on for?
Yeah. So that strategy was very effective for a few weeks, right? Because eventually people are like, yo, where's the paycheck, right? Yeah. Like if you're pretending to have a job, there becomes evidence that maybe you're not actually doing that. Mm-hmm. And so that worked for a couple weeks. And then I was like, all right, I need to pretend to like get fired or quit or whatever. Because the strategy was all around like wearing my parents down. Like just the more shit they had to deal with, eventually they'd just be like, fuck it. Like, this just isn't worth our energy, right? Yeah. And so then the next job I got was actually at an internet cafe where I would game all night while they thought I was working. And then I'd come home in the morning after my quote-unquote shift ended, just sleep all day and rinse and repeat. And again, that worked for a couple weeks, and then I just kind of said I quit or got fired or whatever. And then by that point, they were kind of like, we've been dealing with a lot of shit for a long time with you, and like figure your stuff out.
Was there, how old were you when that was going on?
I was like 18,
okay,
around
18.
there.
So they were saying, figure your shit out or else. Like, what were the consequences that your parents were presenting to you?
There weren't a lot. And I think obviously that's definitely part of the problem somewhat. But I also have so much empathy and understanding from talking to so many parents that like, just kicking your kid out of the house, even if that's, the right call, that's fucking hard to do. Like, right. It's not super easy. It's easy when that's not your kid. Right. To be like, oh, just kick him out. It's similar when, someone goes through a breakup, right? And like, as a friend, you have no attachment to it at all, no emotional investment. So it's very easy for you to be objective. But for your friend, it's like, he might not be paying attention to anything because he's so emotional about it, right? So I think the same thing happens with parents. It's really hard, even if that's the answer. And at the same point, based on what I see, I don't think it's always like morally the right thing to do either, to just kick your kid out, because like that kid could actually end up on the street.
Well, I mean, I hear a lot of circumstances with that too. I also know kids who are homeless by choice. Now, which is very interesting because if you're homeless by choice, homeless people, like real homeless people, are actually very territorial and they'll kick the shit out of you if they like see that you're pretending to be homeless. But I guess that's how the policing keeps itself in check. You don't need cops for that scenario. But I guess how would I put it? I mean, the thing I notice is like there's a huge like millennial epidemic where millennials are getting lazy and less independent and things like that. And sort of like you were saying, I feel like it's not so much like the people. It's while part of it is technology, I believe that also the parents are getting worse. The parents born in the 70s or 80s, they're also sort of not being the best themselves because it's like the motivational tactics. Or just the grit of it all. It's like it's not as firm as it was, maybe for parents born in the 30s or 40s, So it's I don't know. It's weird. My dad had a theory where hardworking people skip a generation, where it's you have the hard parents, and then the children of those hard parents, they're the easy parents, and then the kids who had it easy, they're the hard parents on the next generation, and the cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats. Now you were okay, so you were like you were pretending to have a job and all this stuff. How old were you, and what was the key moment where you realized like, okay, this is a problem. This is like an issue? What was that major key moment?
Yeah, so during this whole time, I was super depressed. And it was kind of like the more I pretended to have jobs, eventually, I wasn't working. I was having a really hard time keeping a job. And my depression got worse and worse and worse until one night when I actually wrote a suicide note. And it was that night where I kind of, had to have some really honest conversations with myself about like what was really going on. And long story short, I ended up, instead of following through with that, I ended up going out to see the movie Superbad with a couple friends, and we got super stoned. And I laughed during that movie. And then I think the shift in my state from being like at that sort of low to laughing over the movie Superbad, stoned out of my mind, kind of shifted me and made me realize like I was actually serious about this. And so I went home, talked to my dad and said, yo, can you help me find a counselor? Like, I'm not doing really well. And started to see a counselor. And basically his deal with me was that I had a choice. I either had to get and keep a job, or I had to go on antidepressants, which was not interesting to me at all. And so I got a job. And the job gave me kind of stability and some structure. And it was hard. I remember having panic attacks for like the first month. I had that job. I had to throw up in the shower before going. And it was really intense. But for me...
Wait, you had a job where?
At H&M in the retail section.
Okay, I see. All right.
Yeah, and I remember that was really, really tough. But the choice that I had made was that if I wasn't going to end my life, then I had to do the complete opposite, which was to truly try to realize my potential and really see what I could make of myself if I applied all the talent and potential that I felt I had in the direction of being productive and actually going for my goals and like trying to make something of myself. And so that's where it kind of all started.
So how many years after seeing Superbad did that happen? Or it was like a month?
I mean, that was like, all at the same time, basically, like around a month or two. Yeah.
So like 07 maybe. So I guess at what point? So I mean, you figured out, okay, well, it's time to help myself. At what point did the mogul in you, or whatever the term is, at what point did you think, okay, I gotta branch out, help out, or I gotta make some money off this? I've cracked the code.
Yeah. So what happened was, long story short, I ended up, over a couple years later, shared my story online. It got a big response. That turned into a TEDx talk about a year later. That had a big response. And then for 2 years after that, all I had been doing for 4 years was responding to people's comments and emails that I was getting every single day. There's thousands of them. And just giving them feedback and giving them any advice I had or motivation or whatever. And I had a different business before, which was around personal development. That worked for 5 years, and then I decided to split from my business partner and basically took 2 years off and just traveled and, tried to learn more about myself and learn what I wanted to do next. And what I've always wanted is to have a business where I'm able to make a difference and also have it be sustainable through its own structure.
So that first business must have been pretty good if you're able to travel for a couple of years, right?
It did pretty well. I mean, we had a really interesting program in a very underserved community, which was in my hometown back in Canada. Yeah. And, we did some cool stuff. It was fun. And when I started that, I was a 20-year-old kid without a high school diploma or university degree. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing at all.
You dropped out of high school to play more video games?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
And we started that business and we made a good run of it, and eventually it came to its course.
Right.
But Game Quarters over that time, over that 4-year span, was just kind of like always in front of me. And eventually I kind of started to feel like an asshole that if I didn't actually do something about this, like no one was ever going to do something about it.
Right, yeah.
And so I launched Game Quarters and committed to providing better resources than just one article and one video, and actually giving people real resources and programs and support and the opportunity to connect with each other and to make enough noise that like, yo, people need to pay attention to this. This is a growing problem. This is something that matters, and we need to get the word out.
What was the date that Game Quitters broke ground and went live?
I say around January 2015, I think. Okay. I think the website officially went up like August 10th because I had this interview on TV Asia, which was super random.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go on the show and not have a domain name. So I think I bought GameQuitters.com and put like just an email sign up box on it, just for the TV thing. But around January 2015 was when I really fully committed to it and was like, here we go.
Okay. So, I mean, so you would say, I mean, so the majority of your day running a website like that, would you say the majority of your day is solely answering emails and just talking? Would you say that's the majority of your day as far as running Game Quitters is concerned?
It's an aspect of it. There's a lot that I do. I have my hands in 15 different plates, everything from, supporting the community, answering questions and, providing feedback, to moderating, making sure everything is good, to, today I talked to an agent for some speaking stuff. I'm working on a speaking tour. I have a board of advisors, so we have certain projects that we're working on a weekly basis, reading research, making YouTube videos, planning, doing interviews like this. There's like 4,000 different things I do during the day.
Right. Yeah, no. That's it all goes into running the ship tightly. The one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you have any research backing this, is the one thing I've noticed, which has gone into people sitting around playing video games, getting lost in video games. Because about 3 days ago, a guy that we have on the show sometimes, not an interview, but just like a guy who helps out. I was talking to him and I was like, hey, you want to watch a movie? And he said, oh no, I'm going to bed in 30 minutes. And so I'm sitting in the Skype call, and 2 hours later, he's still there, and all I hear are the little, controller flicks. Like, that's all I'm hearing. So it's like, I've sort of noticed that games sort of lock people in and make them lose track of time. And I feel like a part of this is, that wasn't really possible with Galaga or Super Mario Bros. Or, any of those like old 2D games. But something like Grand Theft Auto, World of Warcraft, these things that are intended time wasters. Have you noticed that? Do you feel that the fact that the technology's progressed and games are way better than they used to be is a big thing going into why so many people have these addictions?
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely plays a role. Games don't end. You can play the same game for 15 years, and at that point, it just becomes nostalgic. It's a core piece of your identity. It's just what you've always done.
Right.
And on top of that, games are now designed where they know exactly how to keep your attention and, the exact science behind it all. They have behavioral psychologists on staff at these gaming companies. So, I mean, it's all designed, of course. And I don't think that there's necessarily – I'm not going to take a huge stance of saying that that's like – unethical or it's the wrong thing to do.
Right.
I won't go that far, but I think that we need to pay attention to it, and I think that we just individually, when we're gaming, we need to understand that is an aspect of what's going on. And earlier you kind of brought up the example of how people play because games are fun, and for me, I always like to ask the question of like, are you having fun or are you happy? Are you having fun or are you just stimulated? And games are so immersive that like your brain likes games, but do you like games, right? Like, do you really, when you walk away from a gaming session, do you really walk away feeling like, wow, that was literally like the best thing ever? And or do you walk away and you're like, wow, I feel like a zombie right now, right?
Yeah,
and there's a difference there.
Yeah, I know a ton of people who all they do is play League of Legends all day or whatever, and like every time they go into it pissed off and then they come out pissed off, and it's like, dude, what are you even doing, man?
Yeah, well, no, yeah, I've definitely noticed this where it really is all people have, and it's not that it makes them happy, it's just they don't know anything else, because gaming, because of the media, gaming is sort of this accepted, it's this more accepted thing, and so what you see a lot of the time is people are into gaming less so because they like the games or they're passionate about the games, and much more so because it's an easy inlet to social interaction and being accepted by a community. And because I there was this convention called MagFest, Music and Gaming Fest, and there is what is it? There was I would see tweets of people being like, man, all these people are here, but they don't like video games. And I'm like, well, yeah, because they go there because it's like, it's just really, I don't know too many gamers who are like, what do I put it? I don't know too many gamers who are selective with the people they hang out with, unless it's like, oh, they don't know anything about video games, So it's a very sort of easy social inlet. But I guess I mean, what kind of? I mean, we're talking about games, the newer ones, the more immersive ones. Cam, what were some of the games that you were playing ages, I don't know, 15 to 18 or whatever it was?
I played StarCraft a lot, Brood War, Counter-Strike 1.6, World of Warcraft, and some Dota at the very end. But StarCraft and Counter-Strike were definitely the games that I really, really loved. And when I was super depressed and I had dropped out of high school, I got into World of Warcraft, and I can definitely see the difference between each of those games and in the way that they motivated me and they drew me in. They were different for each game, but those were the ones I was into. And, now as a gamer, I almost feel kind of old admitting that.
Well, I mean, put it this way, so you got into World of Warcraft after dropping out of high school. Did you sort of, and I don't know how much press was out on World of Warcraft at that time, but as far as, what is it? World of Warcraft is sort of now today, I don't know back then, but now today it's sort of known as this, the no-life game, And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, when you started playing that game, when you signed up, were you thinking to yourself, oh, God, I'm one of these people now? Or, did you not even...
I definitely felt that a bit. I mean, my friends from Counter-Strike, I went from Counter-Strike 1.6 to World of Warcraft. And, I mean, I was never really into it. And then I think one day a buddy was like, dude, just come and play for an hour. And I was like, all right. And I think my team at the time, Counter-Strike team, started to notice that I was playing World of Warcraft a lot more, during the day, and then I'd come and scrim. And I definitely was getting some backlash. And eventually I left Counter-Strike for World of Warcraft, so I guess maybe they were onto something.
Yeah. No, so I mean, where is it? So, there's a question of gaming affecting motivation and empathy and things of this nature. And I was wondering, do you have any, are there any studies or statistics that come to mind to back the fact that, to back this thing of gaming killing your motivation and so on and so forth?
So we follow a lot of the research that comes out of the porn addiction community, especially around how porn and gaming and these types of immersive activities impact the brain. And so what we ultimately recommend is a 90-day detox, and we do that because of the actual impact that hyperstimulation or supernormal stimuli has on your brain, and the fact that your brain gets used to that. And when you're gaming and you're fully immersed, real life isn't in the same way, right? And so that difference is actually impacting the experience you have of real life. So there's research that shows that there are three main structural changes that happen to your brain from an overexposure to this type of stimulation. And the first is numbed pleasure response, which means that everyday pleasures no longer really satisfy you. Everything else is kind of boring. The second is hyperreactivity to gaming, which means that gaming is really exciting and everything else is boring, and the contrast between the two is what you're kind of experiencing. So if you're justifying gaming because everything else is boring, it's not because everything else in life is boring. It's because your brain is used to that type of stimulation. And the third is willpower erosion, which happens due to changes to your prefrontal cortex. So gaming can impact your motivation, but it's because it's such an intense experience that real life, you don't have the same type of sustainability in that.
Right. Okay. I mean, that definitely makes sense to me, and I've seen real life examples where things that you've alluded to. I definitely see that manifested itself in real world examples with just people I interact with. Definitely.
You're also training your brain to be focused on instant gratification, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
When you want a game, you just turn it on and you game, and you're seeing all these rewards and all this stuff, and you get it instantly. In real life, that's not how it works. Delayed gratification is scientifically proven through study after study that people are more successful when they focus more on delayed gratification. In life, things take time. And if you're just used to instant gratification all the time, you're going to have a really hard time persevering even just a little bit in life to actually be able to get something done. So I think that's also a big part of the conversation.
No, yeah, I think about when you say stuff like that, I think about a lot of the tycoon games, like Roller Coaster Tycoon is the one probably everyone's seen or played. But I think about a game that came out called Game Dev Tycoon. In that it's it's just a game where you're some guy you're some guy in like a garage and you're making video games and all this. And I played like the demo of it, and within an hour you've gone from the guy in the garage to now you're able to have your own office, and when you drop a game, like you're able to research all this technology and make this money and get sales and all the all these things. And I just think to myself, like, just so I've gone from my garage to my own office in an hour. In the real world, that's at least like a 5-year progress, So the contrast is definitely there, and it's I run into so many, like, we were yesterday I was talking to a guy who was he like started a video project back in like December, and it's like this really stupid simple video. And everyone wants him to finish it because a lot of people helped him out with it. I personally got some people to help him out with it. And for the last 6 months, he's completely put it off. And just last night, we were like, hey, hey, get that done. And 2 minutes later, we see he boots up a game of Dota 2. And we're calling him out. We're like, hey, man, like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be working on that video, bub. And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. He just like leaves the call, And it's, would you say that is like true video game addiction? Like, would you say that's like a prime example of it?
Well, I think that certainly shows, problematic use at least.
Okay.
And part of it's just a denial, right?
What do you think of people? All right, put it this way. This is a question that's burning. What do you think of people who they have a job, but they have other goals and other career things, and rather than working on those after work, they just go home and play video games, and their excuse is, oh, well, I'm tired after work. Like, what's your philosophy with that?
Dream bigger.
Yeah, no, okay. All right, yeah, no. Because it's like that's what I hear so much. It's like, oh no, I just don't feel like it. I'm drained after work. I was at Tesla.
I get it, but like, man, like, okay, do you like it? And if not, great, fucking change it. Like,
yeah, no.
I feel I get it, and I'm not trying to hate on it, but I'm just like, man, I don't think that people know actually how much potential they have if they actually applied themselves at all in the direction of actually trying to achieve that. Yeah. Instead of just like, great, you're wasting your entire life stimulated, entertained, watching YouTube videos or whatever, and you're not actually creating anything. And you're going to look back on that and be like, what the fuck was I doing? And we all know that. Like, yeah, it's not like it's a secret. And so all I try to be, at least, is an example of what's possible when you do choose to step in and go for it. And it's super hard. It's super challenging. I'm still barely keeping my head above water every single day. It's not easy, but it's rewarding, and it's like, what else are you going to do? How long are you really going to just sit back and do nothing after working a job that you're not even that stoked to go to? Like, let's start having more ambition than that.
There was a study that involves, and we brought it up earlier, how there was some relation to game popularity increasing and males in their 20s employment decreasing. Have you seen this study, or do you have any thoughts on the study?
I see it every single day in our community.
Okay.
The biggest demographic that we have in our entire community is a college student or a failing college student. Someone who's male, 23 years old. That's like the largest section of our community. And, now we're seeing it in research on the actual unemployment. Now, I think that, I want to acknowledge, because I know it's a bit controversial, that study, that of course there's other factors at play. Like, it's not like automation's not impacting the economy or wages or whatever. Like, there's a lot of aspects that are impacting the economy. And I also think that we can also acknowledge that there are a lot of guys, and, I'd be happy to introduce you to a couple tens of thousands of them, that are struggling in school, failing out of college, and where do they go after that? They go live with their parents, and they sit in their basement and they play video games, because video games are a safe place where people can fail. Like, you can go try and be the boss, and when you lose, what do? You press restart, you try again. It's like not a big deal. It's dirt off your shoulder. In life, you apply for a job, you get rejected, that shit hurts, right? And I'm not saying it has to hurt, but if that's where you're at, it hurts, and that discourages you from trying again. And, you don't even have to believe me. Just go read the journals of these guys, right? Go on the Game Quiz forum, open up journals and just read what they have to say. And that's what I love about the community is it's reflected in their own words, their own language, their own experience. And especially when it comes to the job front.
So many times, I've seen this a million times. And I don't know if you've seen this or you yourself have done this, when you were like 17. But I've seen so many kids who play video games all day. That's all they do. That's their whole life. And you ask them, hey, what are you going to do for a living, bud? And they're like, I'm going to develop games. And I'm like, everybody can have a dream, whatever it is. But it's like, it's ironic that gaming kills your motivation and game development is something where you need tons of motivation. So I don't, again, the majority of the people who have said, I want to be a game designer, that's why I play so many video games, I'm researching, like they try to justify it. And it's like, that ain't gonna work out. But let's go to real quick. I want to go to someone has a question, wants to call into the show. Let's go to David. Throw David in here. David, what do you want on the show? What's going on?
Not much. What's the guys that you're talking
Cam,
to's name?
We're talking to Cam, founder of GameQuitters.com, a website battling video game addiction.
All right, thanks. I had it written down somewhere here. There it is. I'm going to backtrack a bit here. You said you have to stop. You have to get out of your slump in video games, and you have to start dreaming. Well, how does one start to dream?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think initially, here's how it worked for me. I started to think about what I wanted and what that could be. And so at the time I was working a job at H&M and having to call in sick for work sucked, and having to ask for permission to take the weekend off sucked. And so I was like, I want to work for myself, right? Like I want to have the freedom and flexibility to do whatever I wanted. So that was also coming from my values, right? And so I knew that in order to do that, I'd have to be my own boss. I had no idea at all about business, how to start a business. I had no business idea, none of it. But I knew I wanted to work for myself. And so that gave me some initial direction to start asking questions. How do you start your own business and eventually put it into action, right? And so eventually that ended up turning into I want to move to California. I was living in cold Canada, freezing my ass off for half the year. And I wanted to move to California so I could go surf every day, right? And so I had to learn the visa process and all of that. And that turned into a project, right? So I think you first want to think about, what are your values? What do you want? What do you really care about? And then if you could actually do it, what would you actually try and pursue? What's something you want? What's a goal that you can pursue? Start there and then use that as you make progress on it to kind of help you think a bit bigger. What do you really want? And then create another project and allow that to evolve over time.
Yeah. David, what do you want?
What do I want?
Yeah.
Man, I have no idea. That's why I called in asking the question.
Well, I don't know. When people are
we all want something.
Yeah, I know. When people are asked, what do you want? It might be difficult, but it's you got to think every now and then sporadically in your head, something comes up where it's I want a girlfriend or, or whatever the hell it is. People can want whatever they want to want. I don't, but it's, unless it's wanting to be a murderer or something, don't probably keep playing video game. Please stop playing video game. But a lot of people don't. It's very rare that people actually verbally can acknowledge or articulate what they want. But everybody has something. Everybody knows something. And Cam, have you experienced? Because I feel like I've met a type of person like this. Not like David, but generally speaking. Have you ever met someone who is literally just, I want to play video games for the rest of my life and live with my parents? Have you met someone who has literally verbally articulated that? Because I have.
For sure. And I can't blame them. That sounds kind of sweet, right? But it also,
really? Go ahead. Sorry.
Is that really the best you can do? And I think that's comfortable. That's really easy. And I think that's the easy way out. And I think that ultimately a lot of people have different things that they want to do, but they're not even allowing themselves to even think about that because they're scared. And they know that they actually would have to put themselves on the line and face their ego and not just be able to sit back and think, I have all this potential. I could be something great, but I'm never going to actually try. So, I meet people who don't really have ambition, and I think it's weird. But at the same time, I think if people truly understood what they could actually accomplish if they really tried and kept at it consistently, a lot of people would be taking us up on that offer. So I think, if you don't really know exactly what you want to do right now, just start with something small. or start with a random challenge. I think at one point I ran a half marathon. I don't even really care that much about running, but having that project gave me something to focus on. And then after that, it opened my eyes to like, cool, what could I do next? And so traveling to a foreign country became that. I'm about to fly next month to Portugal. Never been there before. And I just decided to go. And there's certain things I want to do when I'm there, like have my own Airbnb and be able to go surf and whatever. But like, it's just a challenge, just go to a different country and experience that. I fundraised for trips to Tanzania to build clean water wells. And, okay, here's $3,000 you got to raise to try to figure that out. So just challenge yourself, find random things, fundraise, do a physical challenge. Just get into that mode of setting goals and pursuing them. And then as you develop that confidence, you'll start to open your perspective on like, cool, what if I actually created the mission myself, or what is something I really want to do, and go do it.
Cam, there's something you said that I really liked. Is that, like, paraphrasing is like, is that the best you can do? Like, man, that's something that's really cool. Like, if people can't, like, if you want to sit and at home and play video games all day, like, that's fine, but like, is that the best you can do? I really liked what you said there.
I was bringing this up. I think I brought this up to Cam in the pre-interview, and a lot of people just in everyday life who encounter this is there's people who will just sit and do things like pessimistically watch E3. And so it's like you think about stuff, it's like that's real. Like every year they're like, oh my God, E3's coming on, I can't wait, and they just complain about everything. And it's like, maybe that's a challenge in your, maybe that's a challenge you could set for yourself. If you feel that every video game that's coming out is bad, maybe then think about, okay, what do I not like about this? How could I how could I make maybe I should look into making my own video game or something like that. Not a AAA game, but making like a small little game that you can put out to people. Or Cam, do you feel that video game journalism, starting a video game journalistic site, do you feel like that's good, or do you feel like that's just going to lead to more addiction?
Anything that gets you actually taking action and being a creator and not a consumer is a positive step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Okay, well, there it is. David, we're going to move on to next thing. We'll see you later.
All right.
Thanks, David.
See ya.
Thanks, David. That's David, originally from Montana, now lives in Nevada. Okay, so what up?
David's my brother's name, so good name.
Are you related to that guy?
That might have been my brother. I don't know.
Oh, not David Barra. Okay, David B. Whoops. Yeah. Okay, don't want to get him murdered. Okay, so what do we got? So there's this big justification that I hear from. Put it this way, not the best people. I hear that people say that, I tell people, you're not going to make any money doing that. Like it's a waste of time to just sit there and play video games all day, go out and make them or something. And I get the answer of esports. That's a huge cop out, justification. And what's your take on people who are saying that they're training to be esports athletes?
I think that a lot of people are hilariously misguided at what that actually takes.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I'll never be someone that will tell someone to not pursue their dream. I played hockey for 15 years. I pursued that as intensely as one could do, the whole thing. And I also know that I didn't even come close, to making it, like not even close. And I had sports psychologists. I had personal trainers. I left school every day at lunch hour to go train. I had 2-a-days. Like, we did the whole thing, and still not even close. And so, I think a lot of people are gaming all day long, and they think that to be a pro gamer, you have to just game and game and game. But it actually has a lot more to do with just peak performance. So, what's your exercise regime like? What's your diet like? What are your mindsets like? What's your, just general life like? And if you're not able to kill it in all those areas, then you're probably not even going to come close to being a pro gamer, because there's a lot more to it than just gaming and gaming.
Yeah, no, and also with esports, I think you mentioned the percentage-wise, not raw numbers-wise, but percentage-wise, you said that the amount of people trying to do it and the number of jobs for it it's a smaller percentage than any other professional sport one could that one could pursue. Was it something like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just look at, the amount of competition, the number of kids, the age ranges, the global fact that gaming is all over the world, and you look at the number of spots available to be a pro gamer, the difference between that and the number of spots available in, say, the NBA or professional basketball, and the number of people trying to make it, I think those numbers are very, very different, and I believe you have a less chance of being a pro gamer than any of those. And so I think that, again, I won't say don't pursue it, but understand what the reality is. And if, I think if I wasn't gaming all summer long and I was actually training and, playing hockey still and, trying to improve, I would have had a much better chance than getting high all summer playing video games and, not training at all. Right. So if you want to be a pro gamer, like, I want to see your calendar. I want to see like what you're really putting into that and how focused you are on it, or are you just using it as an excuse to game all day long because you don't actually have to put yourself on the line?
Yeah. I remember we were like arguing with one of our friends like a month back or two, and they were saying how like they thought that being an esports champion or whatever would be like really financially like stable or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But, like,
I don't know if you've done the research on this, but is there do you know if is esports exclusively prize money, or are they on salary or guaranteed contract?
I think there's usually a mix of all of it, but at the end of the day, some people are making money, right? And that's the example that people always give me. They're like, well, there's this one person making $1 million a year playing video games, and you're like, okay, so you can't, like, they're always like, wait, people make millions of dollars playing video games, and it's like, yeah, but how many people? Like a handful of people, or like thousands of them? Right?
Yeah, we looked at like this tournament that won this team that won a tournament, and they got like $1 million. Like, we just broke it down and like looked at it, and like, they weren't really making that much money.
Well, the thing is that and we were talking to a guy who plays like Dota 2 all day, and he was saying that they win $1 million, and I'm like, yeah, after taxes, that's like 400,000, like,
and tournaments are only so often, so that might have been $1 million or whatever, that one time. But it's not like they're getting that weekly or whatever, right? Like, these tournaments don't happen all the time, and they don't always win, right? So there's more to the conversation. I'm sure there are a bunch of people who are pro gamers and they're making good money in all of it, just like there are some YouTubers. And I also understand, because I have a YouTube channel, that in like 3 years I've made about $115. And it's not like me having a YouTube channel automatically means that I have one that's making me a lot of money. Just if you're not a pro gamer, that doesn't mean that you're one of them making a lot of money either.
One thing that I've noticed is, and I don't know if you have, I don't know if you're even, I guess, judgmental enough to think this. I definitely am. But I've noticed that in the last few years, nerd culture has been this like huge thing. You walk into Spencer's Gifts and they have thick rim glasses and all this stuff. And it's how do I put it? Do you feel like a chunk of that has given a lot of these guys validation to continue doing it, to think that it's normal to play tons of video games when, you get like a 15-year-old girl who says she's a gamer because she plays Angry Birds?
Yeah, I think that obviously pop culture has an influence on, making it more acceptable. But, I also think that that also happens when all of your friends play. And just the number of kids who play video games now is like just all of them, right? So like when everyone's doing it, you're not even gaming because you want to game. You're gaming because that's how you and your friends hang out after school. Yeah. And then that's what you've always done. And then you get to college and you're like, shit, I don't even know how to study, right? I don't even know how to not play video games. And school kind of sucks and I feel stressed. And so I might as well just go and game because that's going to somehow magically solve all of my problems.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, let's go to one more caller here. Let's go to Peter. Let's see Peter. What's going on? What do you want to know?
Yo, Peter.
Hey, I'd like to have a question for Mr. How do you pronounce your last name? I'm sorry.
It'll be $500 if you pay $500 right now. You can ask.
So anyway, my question is, I'm trying to play a sport in college, most likely lacrosse, but. I am I wouldn't say I'm a very huge gamer, but occasionally I like to play video games on my off time. So in this summer, pretty much every day I've been getting up. I know what you say about how you have something like a goal or whatever to work on. My goal is to play, a sport in college. So I have football workouts at 6 a.m. every other day with my team. And I have sessions. So there's 2, and I'm kicking for varsity.
You got to speed this up. How many video games are you playing?
I pretty much on my off time I'd play Madden or NHL or NBA 2K. Nothing crazy.
How many hours a week?
Maybe
or a day?
A day, no more than 1 hour. So I have a lot of stuff doing. Like I'm working on a lot of stuff, and I make time for my friends and.
All right. Okay. Well. All right. So Cam, will an hour a day put you in the grave? What's going on?
No, I think you're all right. And, just to give you some value, I would think about why you play and what need it fulfills for you. And if you can find that in something else, or if you can invest that time in developing a different skill, like starting your own business or learning marketing or something that, will give you kind of a skill to lean on as you go forward in lacrosse. Because if you can market yourself as an awesome lacrosse player, that's going to open up a lot other opportunities for you than just being a lacrosse player.
Well, Peter, are you trying to go league with, or does lacrosse even have a league?
No, I'm just I'm trying to play Division 3.
Well, if you're not trying to go league, I guess an hour a day isn't a big deal. But if let's think about a sport with like an actual league, like football. Put it this way, if lacrosse has a professional league, they're not marketing it too well. So I mean, if you're trying to be a football player or like a quarterback or a kicker or whatever, I mean, and if you want to be professional, I would say don't play video games at all. Like any time spent playing video games should be spent kicking that ball. If you want to be a kicker in the NFL or something like that, because that's but again, that's like another step. Not everybody aims that high. So, but lacrosse, why do you want to play lacrosse in college? Why don't you want to play like a cool sport?
Lacrosse is cool. I come from Canada. They invented lacrosse, I believe. So go lacrosse.
Well, I mean, I've changed a lot of positions in football. Like 1 year I was quarterback. I really never played. 1 year I was wide receiver. And now I finally took up kicking, and it was the easiest way to find myself on time on the field.
But they had you play wide receiver. How fast do you run?
My sophomore year, I ran a 4.9 40-yard dash. Oh, okay. So usually, like starting receivers for varsity usually run. All right.
Well,
yeah,
hey. Throw your Xbox in a garbage disposal, and I wish you best on your journey to lacrosse playing, or whatever the hell. All right, Peter, we'll call you back later, bud. All right, okay. That was Peter. I don't care where he lives. Okay, so Cam, so far this has been one of our best interviews yet. Are there any final closing words that you have for the people at home?
Dream bigger and add me on Instagram at Cameron Adair.
Okay, that's the plug. Cam, we might give you, I guess we'll give you a recording of this interview if you want to put it up on your page or your YouTube or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Thanks so much for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thanks for showing up. This was great. All right, Cam, we're going to see you later.
Peace.
Thank you.